how do you negotiate somebody buying your startup? In this video, I'm going to share with you some strategies of going through that negotiation process, because maybe you've had somebody reach out and showed interest. Maybe they've asked you how much you would want to sell your company for, or even started negotiating terms with you and you've never done this before. Well, that's what I want to share in this video. You know, I've been building companies now for 20 years. Over the last 10 years alone, I've started and scaled 10 companies have been acquired. The last 2 were venture backed. And I've helped 20 plus other entrepreneurs sell their business or go through that process. You know, recently I was working with one of my clients and she was working on the discussions, and she had different interests from different parties and was wondering, how do you structure that? How do you respond to one? How do you get somebody else excited? How do you create that process to try to maximize the value for your shareholders? That's what I want to share with you guys in this video, the 5 strategies to negotiate an acquisition of your company. So the first one is never, ever put out the first number. And this is a tough one because, you know, if you both are good negotiators, the acquiring company and yourself, then there's like this stalemate. It's like, who's going to put out the first number? Who's going to say what your company's worth? If you get stuck and they're like, look, we just need a number. What are you thinking? What do you think, you know, your shareholders, your investors, your board, you know, your team would want as an outcome to make this deal happen? You can say, look, you know, we want to hear from you first, but I can say this. In the past, we've had people, you know, suggest that, you know, the number could look like this. So it's not even you saying it, it's other people, potential acquirers, other people in the markets. Maybe it's the valuation from other VCs or investors. They're setting the price so that you're beholden to that. You're not telling them like, this is what I think it's worth. You're just saying, look, this is what other people have said, and, you know, take it for what it's worth. What do you want to do? And really, you're just trying to give them enough information to get them to a point where they're going to sign or write a term sheet for your business. So that's number 1. 2, I always suggest moving to the phone. I do not negotiate in email. If I feel like the acquirer has some legs and there's some real meat there and they really want to do a deal, I'll be like, let's get on a call. The first one will just be with usually the CEO or the corp dev person, try to understand where they're at. And then eventually it's like, who are the other people that need to be involved in this decision? Let's get them on a conference call. And then it's just an introduction. It's a conversation. And then really quickly, I'll try to move them to a term sheet. But here's the deal. I always get on the phone to negotiate, to discuss, because there's so much things that can be misunderstood in an email. And also there's a record of what you've said that they can share with the rest of the team. So what I do, my strategy is pick up the phone, talk, follow up with an email to get the commitment of what you've discussed, especially if there's numbers, there's terms or strategies, whatever it is. You want to make sure that you negotiate using voice, because that's way more fluid and easy and understanding the nuances. But then you move to an email to lock in the understanding of what was said on the call. The third thing is know your BATNA. You know, a guy named Roger Fisher wrote a book called Getting to Yes, incredible book on negotiation, and he talks about a BATNA, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement. Before you get into any negotiation, you need to sit down with your team, with yourself, reflect, and say, hey, what's our BATNA? What's the number? What's the lowest number we're willing to accept to make this deal happen? And with that, what are the terms that we should look at or review to ensure that we're on the same page? But having that BATNA will help you decide what's the number that you may go back and kind of counter with, or what are some of the terms that are going to be involved. Whatever it is, understanding your best alternative to negotiate agreement when you're going to walk away is a critical step. It's really the third in the 5 strategies. The fourth is create a competitive process. Please, this is the biggest thing that I worked with the entrepreneur that I was consulting was, you know, I call it the escalation ladder. Like, I have a framework for how do you take a company that never heard of you and walk them through and escalate to the point where they could be writing a competitive term sheet for that same deal in a very short amount of time. You can do the same thing with investors. If you have a company coming to buy you and you think what you've created is really valuable, then you can take that opportunity, go to other investors and say, hey, we really want to build this business, but we have an opportunity to get some liquidity or exit or return for our investors. But we think there's a big opportunity here. Do you want to look at this deal and maybe preempt that investment? So creating a competitive process will give you more avenues to negotiate against the different potential acquirers or investors to increase the valuation or the number that you're going to get for your business. So always create a competitive process. That's number 4. And 5 is hustle across the finish line. Like, no matter what, I just want to let you know this, 30% of deals that get signed term sheets go south. They don't work out. Something comes up in the due diligence or the negotiations, or just it takes too much time. You know, the way I look at it is once there's a signed term sheet, You want to set a date that's 6 weeks to 8 weeks out in the future. You want to make sure that the lawyers are on point. You want to make sure the lawyers don't have any scheduled vacations coming up, which happened to me in one of my deals. And you want to make sure that you talk to your team and let them know what's going down. Make sure you do interview prep. There's so many things you don't want to get it wrong, but that area is called the red zone, right? That point where you sign a signed term sheet with one acquirer, like pretty much you have no defense. If something goes wrong with that deal, then it's really hard to go back to the other ones and say, oh, sorry, we passed on you, but this didn't work out. We now want to talk about that deal. Not a good spot to be. So that is the 5 strategies. First is don't mention a number. Second is talk on the phone, then write an email to follow up. Third is know your BATNA, your best alternative to negotiate agreement. Fourth is create a competitive process. And 5 is always hustle across the finish line. You know, I want to invite you to subscribe to my newsletter to get exclusive content and private invites to events that I hold. And as per usual, I want to challenge you to live a bigger life and a bigger business, and I'll see you next Monday.